What's up?
We're back.
What is happening, guys?
Wow. October 26th? Is that the last time that we posted a video?
October 26th. Has it been that long?
I think so, man.
Did we ring in the new year and we just haven't seen you since then?
Wow. So the last time we were talking was 2022, and it just a whole different world, whole different people, honestly. Whole different podcast.
I feel like we're new men.
I honestly do.
We have entered a new stage of life in this new year.
Yeah, we're new people, and I'm just so glad that we came back in the studio. I really miss being here, being part of this energy, this life, this community that this podcast really is.
I totally agree. So, I mean, speaking of, new things, we have decided to introduce something kind of new to our brand, our podcast. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, and you may have actually noticed clicking onto this podcast here, you've been like, wait a minute, is this new? And yeah, it is new. In the last episode, we were talking about how our Half-Baked Takes name ruffled some feathers with new podcast listeners. So we've decided officially to rename our podcast from Half-Baked Takes to the Home-Baked Takes. Sorry, just Home-Baked Takes, not the Home-Baked Takes.
Just Home-Baked Takes.
Just Home-Baked Takes.
And we understand that there's a sort of large part of our audience who may have no idea why we are changing this, and you might be a little disappointed and sad. I'm a little disappointed and sad, but I understand.
This is a mutual decision. We agreed.
This is a mutual decision. If you don't know why, it's fine. Just
listen to our previous episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's
growing pains. But literally the first 2 minutes we talk about it. But I think we're really happy to be moving into a Home-Baked Takes. Hopefully you come and see a new episode being posted, and you're just like you're returning home to have some Home-Baked Takes with old Lukey Joe and Tennyson.
Exactly. Like it's kind of like, we're just having a jolly good time here.
A jolly goose, a silly goose, just any goose or any jolliness. Maybe even a jolly goose time. Who's to say?
Maybe even.
But
And you know what? We're not professionals. We're not, we don't do this for a living.
Soon to be professionals.
But of course, once we get the Patreon up and running.
Especially with our consistent podcast episode schedule.
Of course.
Every 5 months.
Our schedule right now is, unbelievably consistent. So once we, continue doing that, then
hopefully
our numbers will start to go up. But yeah, speaking of which,
yes,
we passed our 500 download milestone.
Little confetti sound effect. Woo!
Woo!
Heck yeah,
Big
man.
deal.
5,000. That's
500.
Okay. I heard 1,000. That's a much different story.
500.
500.
So
we're only at
cool your jets.
9 episodes.
Cool your jets.
Okay. So 500 is still impressive. Halfway to 1,000.
We're halfway to 1K.
A huge celebration in store. I think we'll probably unleash the Patreon at 1K.
We will unleash that bad boy.
And
soon.
We'll start selling merch 10. I think we've already discussed those figures, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we'll just see where the wind takes us. But yeah, that's what's happening right now.
Absolutely. So here to help us celebrate and herald in our 500 download celebration and return and rebrand. So much happening, honestly.
Yeah, dude,
here.
There's so much going on.
So first of all, we actually have 2 guests here. One, a long-time guest of the show, here back for her 3rd appearance on the show. Let's give a hand for Sarah Raptor.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Sarah.
Glad to be back.
You're now a familiar face on our podcast, I feel like.
Officially.
Or familiar voice.
Yes, certainly.
Sure. There you go.
But that's not all, Tennyson. Who else is on our podcast joining us?
No. We actually have a new guest joining us. We have Isabella.
Wow. Great introduction. You guys can just call me Bella.
Bella or Izzy.
Or Izzy.
Or Busy.
Wizzy? Belly.
Belly.
Nope.
Belly.
I think
interesting.
Hey.
That's interesting. That's a new one.
Yeah.
But Bella's cool. Welcome, Bella, to the podcast. Great
Thank
to have
you.
you here.
I'm so excited to be here.
So, yeah, I think, we have a lot of things to talk about today, a lot of things to catch up on, a lot of things happening in our own lives.
Indeed.
In the last episode, we were talking about, how it's like being in college. That was our whole first semester for me and Tennyson now getting to the end of high school, sort of. And, of course, Sarah, you're going through that as well. Bella, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you are in your journey of education and life right now?
Education.
Education.
Wow. Well, I am at the exciting part of high school where everyone asks, oh, so what are you doing next year? So if you haven't guessed, I'm a senior, so only have a couple more months left, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and I'm sure,
Almost done.
Yeah.
I'm
sure
stretch.
You said you asked the question, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? So rather than asking you that question, I'm going to ask, what excites you about not knowing what you're going to do?
What excites me? Wow. I'm really, really excited to see like the plans that God has for me, because throughout my entire life, I have realized that I could have never imagined where he would bring me now. So all of the fun times and even the hard times that he's brought me through have like made me into who I am today. And I'm just really excited to like grow and see others grow around me, to just like through what he has for me planned. So,
Do you feel like it's hard to sometimes, I mean, the concept of like trusting in God for our future and like having him open doors for you. Do you feel like you've had any, the way that I've seen it, I should say, is often like the concept of opening and closing doors. Like that's usually like, I'm just going to keep going what I can. And if things open up or if they don't work out, I'll take that as God's voice. Do you feel like there's any doors that have been closed recently for you at all? Or do you feel like you're just pretty much open to a whole sea of options that could be kind of overwhelming?
Well, I definitely think that just through different like college searches or different gap year options that people have suggested, I have realized a lot of things that I don't want to do. So that's good.
Awesome.
I'm still open to like a lot of things, but
So what are you never going to have a career in?
well, I don't want to say never, because what if I'm wrong?
As far as your judgment goes.
As far as
Maybe someday you'll laugh back at yourself saying this, but we'll see.
I don't think I could handle being a nurse.
A nurse? That's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
A lot of schooling there.
So the
Yeah.
science that you'd have to go through,
Oh my gosh.
science or a chemist. Chemist, that's a pretty safe option. I am never
Never
planning
gonna be a
on
freshman
being
campus?
never planning on being a chemist.
Speaking of science is green though, right?
Yes, or like a yellow.
Yellow?
Yeah,
Yellow.
I see that. Chemistry can sometimes be yellow.
Chemistry would be yellow.
Biology
I feel like chemistry's
is
like
green, dark
pink.
green.
Chemistry is pink.
I don't know. Is that wrong? Is that blasphemous to say?
What color was your
Absolutely.
textbook?
Oh,
My textbook was blue. So that's not even coming into the picture.
I guess a good compromise is green.
Green sounds good.
Green.
Tennyson, what
I
color
agree.
is science?
It is green. Science is green.
Okay,
Science is green.
Guess we're all green.
that's good.
Science does make the green too, if you know what I'm saying.
What?
What are you? Oh, money.
Money.
Okay,
is
so
what
I-
I'm
there it
talking
is.
about.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
There it is. Nice.
What did you guys think I meant?
I mean, I figured it out after like a minute, but I was just like, well, another thing I don't understand that Tennyson's talking about.
So I guess I gotta shoot the same question over to you, Sarah. What occupation will you never have?
I will never be a history teacher.
Why not?
Because I find history and the study of it quite boring sometimes.
Would you rather focus on like the future and like moving ahead rather than dwelling on the
Well,
past?
I think I like the past when it's very specifically related to something that I know. Like, I went to the Bible Museum recently and like learning about the history of the Bible. That was really, really cool because it was something that like I could relate to. But if it's something that I completely can't relate to and I really have no idea how it's going to impact my life, like I try to see how things are going to impact my life. And even if it's like geometry, I try to think, you know what, this could be used for, or this could be used to like enhance my time management skills or whatever. But I don't see myself absorbed in the history material so much and teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Nice.
How about you?
Me? What job? Gosh, I was having a conversation with coworkers like a few weeks ago about how I will never ever be a surgeon. And I think I don't remember the reason why, but I was doing something and I feel like I just dropped something everywhere all over the place. I'm not like a clumsy person, but
What
I'm
if that
not
was a heart? What if that was a
coordinated.
heart that you dropped?
Somebody's
A heart?
organ.
Oh, I know what it was.
Organs.
Right. So I actually, it's funny that you said,
Oh,
can't gloss over that.
sorry. Your spleen got dropped on the floor.
Oopsie
Let me
daisy.
just put that back in.
No, it's actually funny that you
Clean
say
it
chemist
off.
because I'm actually taking like a really basic gen ed chem this year, and we're actually doing like a lab environment. So in the like 5 lab sessions that we've had today, two today so far, I've already broken 3 glass items,
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
and the whole class or lab has looked over in my direction. That means 3 individual times.
You were single-handedly
so-
raising the budget of that class.
Yeah.
Wow.
I literally had a little like 50 to 100 milliliter beaker like just fall into the sink, and it literally shattered over the entire sink. I dropped a bigger beaker on the ground, which bounced before it shattered, which was like, it just played with my heart because I was like, oh, it's not going to break. And then it immediately shatters.
It was like a giant bounce. It doesn't break. And then the second one, it just
So there's
cracks.
more of a chance that I'd be a chemist than you. 'Cause you break
Definitely.
things. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I would just drop my patient's art on the floor.
Big yikes.
And then the
That's a
third
yikes.
one is I had like a substance full of like hydrochloric acid, which is not good. And
Ooh, yeah.
I didn't shatter it, but
Oh.
it was like a Erlenmeyer flask, like that like gets bigger at the bottom, and I knocked it over out of sight with my hand because freaking lab goggles are always just out of sight. And as soon as it hit the table, I grabbed it and picked it back up, but there was a tiny little sliver of glass. And my co-lab partner was like, "Bro, you got to tell the teacher. You have to tell the teacher that you did that." And I was like, "You don't even notice." So I filled it up with water and I held it closed, and there was this tiny little bead of water that came right between that crack, and I was like, "No!" So I went over to my professor, and it was like, "This is the worst way that I could ever approach someone that I broke something." And I was like, "I have a question for you. What is this?" Pointing to the crack, and she's like,
Dude.
"That's a crack. So we'll need to get you a new one." And I was like, "Oh." That's probably
So you
a good
just
idea.
played dumb. You're like,
Bro, it was
What
the worst
happened?
play.
Wow.
I felt so
Wow.
weird about it too because I was like,
crazy.
dude, I should have just said. But I guess after breaking 2 beakers already, I didn't really want to be the guy that brought the third item gleefully over to her. To
The
tell her that
question
I
is,
broke something
are
else.
you the only person in your class who has broken something?
I think I am.
Oh.
At least that everyone knows
Are
about.
you like the guy that breaks the beakers?
I
Is that
think-
like your?
I think
that's like
probably.
your
Your
rep in that class.
I think that's it's bad, man. I'm never gonna show my face in the science building again. I
Well,
swear.
hopefully you don't ever have to use the safety shower. They make a big deal. 'Cause
Safety
Luke and I
shower?
go to the same college, and in chem lab, my chem lab, the lab instructor
In
always
my
makes a,
meth lab. Okay.
hey,
Breaking Bad.
makes a huge deal about how there's this fire blanket. If you catch on fire, you roll yourself in the
Stop,
blanket.
drop, and roll.
And
If there's a fire in the building, just stop, drop, and roll.
yeah, and how the shower has this disgusting water that will come out, and you might have to take off your clothes, but modesty becomes less important in a hazard situation. Yeah, it was
Only
quite
at Christian.
quite
to
the
burn the
speech.
building down and see a bunch of naked people running
Quite
out.
the speech.
No, do you have any horror stories from Chem Lab? Have you created a reputation of yourself of being a glass shatterer, or
Well, you know,
No.
it's
Or
funny.
do you shatter the boundaries of science?
yes?
It's funny
good
you
one.
mentioned chem lab because yes, I have broken something last semester. I broke it in the sink, so it was kind of good. But I recently, me and my lab partner, were making a solution and we had to test it for impurities. We were making aspirin actually. So yeah, so we dissolved the aspirin in some solution and tested it for impurities, and we had to add iron chloride to it as the test thing. And if it was pure, it would stay yellow once you added the iron chloride. If it was impure, it would turn like lavender. So you didn't want lavender, okay? Ours turned dark purple.
Ooh.
Dark purple.
That does not sound
Raven's purple. And then I decided to show it to my friend who was across the lab. And when I said her name, the whole class turned and looked at me and saw the dark purple solution. And that was fun.
Love that.
good. Wow.
But my
Public-
instructor
public
loves like error analysis. So hopefully we'll get extra points in the conclusion. But I asked her, so what do we do now? I asked our instructor, what should we do? Like, because it's purple, do we continue with the rest of the lab? And she said, well, what you can do is say goodbye to 1 point on your lab report.
Oh,
Wow,
dang.
that's cold.
Oh,
Oh,
she did not hold back.
was
No.
the sass too?
Yeah.
Brutal, man.
Oh.
Little embarrassing.
Well, it looks like the three of us are not going to be chemists, but how about you, Tennyson?
No.
Mr. Chemist over here, future chemist.
Hey, you know what? Chemistry was one of the least enjoyable experiences of my high school
Yeah.
academic career. But you know what? I took a like a career assessment test, and they give you like, you know how they give you like options of what
Yeah.
they think you should do. And I got well, one of the options was jeweler,
Wow.
which they
That's
put
awesome.
As a career potential.
as a career path.
That's interesting.
And it was
Dude.
on multiple pages. So I'm talking about like it had like categories of different like parts of the assessment. It was like jeweler,
Wow.
Listen, the jeweler.
creative, jeweler. It was like,
Maybe that's what
wow,
you're supposed to
okay. Is my calling?
Do
Is
you
my
feel-
Yeah.
calling?
How do you
in
feel
the-
about being a jeweler? About being the guy with a little like microscope thing looking over like diamonds
Like,
and saying, "Yep, that's real."
Yep, that's fake.
Those
or that's
YouTube
real.
shorts, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I don't know if I should be the guy that handle the gold. Personally,
I don't know. I
But-
could totally see you as the guy that's just breaking people's hearts when they bring in things they think are valuable, and they're like, "Please tell me this is worth something." You're like, "Yeah, it's worth. Like, I'll give you $5 for it."
This is a family heirloom for 500 years.
Mr. Lowballer.
I would do that just to see the reactions though.
I feel like you'd have
Whoa.
some guy who comes in every single day with something else he's found. How about this?
You're like,
I
you know
found
what?
this rock underneath the ground. Is it
Let me
worth
take a
it?
look at this. You bring it into the back. You bring it back and you say, "You know what? I think I'd probably give you $5 for this." And they're like, $500? You're like, "No, $5." And then they're just in
Yeah,
tears in the
right.
corner of your shoulders. Yeah. So speaking of like, you know, college and all that stuff, as I feel like we've been talking about more recently, I'm wondering your guys' thoughts on poetry.
Poetry.
Is poetry like? Are you guys like poetry people? What do you think is poetry's place for our generation? Which I feel like I've never heard anyone in my generation like poetry. At
I
least
would
they're anomalies.
disagree.
They're anomalies. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen some videos of people reading poetry. So I prefer hearing like people read poetry than reading it myself. Like put emotion behind how they read it and just like the different points in people's voices. I'm blanking on the word.
The inflection.
Inflection.
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah.
mood,
Articulation.
And the tone.
Yeah, exactly.
The timbre.
The
Like
meaning that
they
only
read it in a
someone-
more exciting way than I would read it myself.
Nice. Now I have to ask because it seems like you like poetry.
Yeah.
Have you written any?
No, I mean for school assignments, but not.
So yes, you have.
Yeah, I have.
So what are your thoughts on, and this to everyone, what are you guys' thoughts on having like writing poetry be a school assignment? Because I personally think that approach to poetry can make people view it as a work type of experience. When you're interacting with poetry, I'm doing it for work rather than what I believe it's meant to be, which is sort of like a transcendent form of language almost.
Or an art.
Giving words their fullest meaning that they could, exactly like an art, which feels like making that an assignment, miss the picture. What do you guys think on that?
I think it's practice, kind of getting into that writing style, right? Because in a lot of other classes, you might be doing like a historical, like, or literary or something like that, where you're analyzing something, whereas you don't often get to write like in that form where you're like, where the writing is, generally more sparse, it's more descriptive, you're not summarizing, a book or something. When you're studying it, you can look at other poets and then, try it out for yourself, So I think it's just a different way of thinking from other writing that you do in your academic, path.
Do you feel like, I'm sure you've written poetry and read poetry for school assignments.
I mean, I am named after a poet. So.
Yeah. If you didn't know, here it is first. Do you feel like that's given you a greater appreciation for poetry? Like with a mom that loves poetry, you've probably she's probably had you interact with poetry more.
I've probably been around poetry more than other people, probably.
especially of your age.
Sure.
Do you, like I was trying to say, do you think that has given you an appreciation for poetry? If you were basically to give yourself a way to like poetry, would it be a different way? Like if you wanted your kids to enjoy poetry, how would you do that?
I think it's given me an appreciation for the work that goes into it.
Okay.
Because poetry is hard. Like writing poetry and writing good poetry is very difficult. And I think, my being around, a mom who, writes poetry sometimes, it's, I feel like I see the work that she does and I go and all that, the thought that goes into it. And I think that's definitely giving me more of appreciation than I would have otherwise. But yeah, I think it's good to get exposure to it. Like I probably, if I end up having kids, I don't know, maybe I'll die alone. I don't know.
Yes, sir. He's
But-
single, ladies.
Yeah,
Right?
I am single.
Okay.
But I think I want to expose them to it, if they're not already in school, exposed to it. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone should be.
Nice.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you say that like you don't like love poetry. Obviously you appreciate it, but I would say my dad has always captured things with poems, like special moments or big trips that we've taken as a family, or like getting our first pets or losing our first pets. And he just writes poems and he plays around with words. He calls it playing with words, not really writing a poem, but it really teaches you the appreciation of each word, and it like allows you to paint more of a picture in your mind because there are less words. So you have to fill in more, I think. And I have always loved writing poems. When I was really little, I wrote one called A Day to Remember, and it went like this. Chocolate ice cream for dessert, brownie smudges on my skirt. When the sun begins to fade, in the river I will wade. Owls are hooting in the night. I am sleeping very tight.
Wow.
Wow.
Miss Poet out here.
Dang.
And how old were you?
Impressive.
Probably 8.
That's impressive that you still
Dang.
know it.
Oh, I have a whole little notebook.
Wow.
Wow. Bring
Some
them
of
next
them
time.
rhyme.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
We'll have a
save that for
poetry
next
special.
episode. Wow.
But yeah, do you feel like the way that, you know, your parents have, or even your education has shaped your perspective on poetry, do you feel like that's would be the best way to get someone to appreciate poetry? Do you feel like there was something lacking there?
It's interesting. I think the first thing that I thought of was that everything has to be somewhat integrated into your school, even if you want the kid to still like it when they grow up. Like, I still like science, even though I've had to do it for school.
Right.
So I think you don't have to be afraid of integrating poetry into school, just like an art class. Like, maybe just make sure that that's acknowledged, that it should be an art form. It should be free. It shouldn't feel restricted.
Nice. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, I brought this up because I'm actually taking a poetry class this semester in school. So, and I can genuinely say that I've gotten a greater appreciation for poetry. Like, the whole feeling like when you read a poem and you're like, I don't know what this is really saying. Or
Yeah.
like the feeling that you read it and you're like, I feel like I almost get an idea of what this is trying to encapture, but I didn't really fully get there. Maybe I only approached that idea. And like getting reassurance that that's the point. Yeah. The point is not that you understand and learn a new way of thinking. The point is that it takes you on like a journey of thinking that can allow you to get close to a destination and sort of get that journey there without actually fully embracing everything, because that's not the point of poetry.
Journey of thinking. I love that.
Yeah, it's a way to you to like sort of approach an idea in a unique way, simply by the way that those words are being used. And like that's given me like a lot of like, oh, that means when I read a poem, then it's not just me being like bummed out because I didn't really get it, or I read it and I kind of had like it made my brain go wander to some place, but I didn't actually focus on the words. But that's the point, that if your mind wanders and makes you think of something else, that's literally your whole interaction with poetry. That's what it should be.
Wow.
And to not be discouraged when you're reading it that way as well. So
Nice. So have you written any poetry that you would like to share with us?
it's funny that you say that.
Oh?
Because one of our projects was writing a poem in a style of a poet that we were reading.
Are we going to get a live poetry reading right now?
Perhaps.
Ooh,
and
wow.
so if you were to think of like a female poet, what do you go with?
Emily Dickinson.
There it is.
Yeah.
So your boy live in the studio, well, not live in the studio, but he's got a poem that was written in the style of Emily Dickinson.
Let's go.
And honestly, even through writing this, you guys like the process of like, what is it? Imitation before innovation. You guys ever heard that before?
Say it
No.
one more time.
Imitation before
Innovation.
Huh.
Have you guys ever heard of that before?
No.
The concept is basically, whether you want to write a song or you want to paint a picture or any sort of creative outlet, the best way to get good at something is to basically imitate the style or the structure of someone else. And then as you basically become competent with the imitation, you learn how someone like can make something that good, and then you can make something, then you innovate, you do it yourself. So this is kind of like similar for me. It's like imitating Dickinson's structure and rhyme and flow helped a lot for me just to get an idea of how, you can go into that process. So anyway, it's short, but I'll read it.
Go.
Here it is. Okay, I got my poetry voice on. I found myself upon the grass and lay no shadow near, that I could stay but for a scent and dream the cleansing air. But sun, with firm and knowing heart, did give his warmth to me, and I, too weak to wake my eyes, embraced his lullaby.
Solid.
So the image there Before I describe what my intention was, what did you guys glean from that writing?
Could you read it again, like one more time? I feel like the second time it kind of sinks in better. The first time is like,
Sure.
introductory.
Sure. We'll do an encore here.
Also, I just want to say Luke rolled up his sleeve before reading this, and I thought, oh my gosh, did he like tattoo a poem on his arm? That was the first thought.
I wrote this and immediately got it tattooed. Okay, here we go. Round 2. I found myself upon the grass and lay, no shadow near, that I could stay but for a scent and dream the cleansing air. But sun, with firm and knowing heart, did give his warmth to me, and I, too weak to wake my eyes, embraced his lullaby. So, what are your thoughts?
It's a very calming vibe. I'm getting kind of like, calming sleep energy,
Calming sleep
But
energy?
like the busyness of life is trying to pull you away. But something makes you stay. in the
Yeah, I feel like
moment.
there's a lot of symbolism opportunity here in just like the nature, the sun, what is the sun? What is that thing that's drifting you off to sleep? Is it ASMR? Is that your?
Okay.
No.
We'll have our ASMR special at some point. Don't ever worry about
Don't give
that.
up on that one.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very peaceful. Like almost just when you were reading it, I was like, I'm gonna fall asleep.
Yes.
But just really, it's something that I feel like a lot of people would enjoy, like laying on grass and just like closing their eyes and just feeling like the warmth. I think it sounds pretty nice.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. But, I'm just getting started in the world of poetry. But yeah, I figured it'd be cool to talk about because, like, you never hear, I feel like, people from our generation really talking about it. But,
Yeah.
But like you were saying, Bella, yeah, we're seeing more of it. And especially if you're, like, interested in it more, I'm sure you're getting more exposure to it.
I mean, is there poetry on TikTok all the time? I mean,
Exactly, right? We just hear these pop-inspired new TikTok songs that are just so random.
Yeah, and you can use poetry for all different types of things. So, like, you can use it as, like, song lyrics. So
Yeah.
that's personally what I think about when I think of poetry. Like, how can I put this into a song?
well,
That's
speaking of a song, I feel like it would be fitting to end with a song.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what song I think we should sing? Because one of us here may or may not have a birthday that is actually today.
What? Wait.
Yeah.
Someone has a birthday?
Whoa,
Someone
what?
may have a birthday.
Wait,
That's
who?
crazy.
That's wild. Because I feel like we should get that played by a band, right? Because I know that 2 of our people here in the studio today are part of a band. You guys want to share your band name just to do a quick shout out before we get started?
Not really. Okay.
Is it even a band? We
We
play
are-
Yes,
music.
it
band.
is.
You are a band.
No,
It's
it
a
is
band, but we're very new and we do not have a band name.
We
So
don't have a
suggestions are
firm
welcome.
we don't have a firm band name in place right now.
Yeah.
So where can the listeners access your content?
Nowhere at the moment unless you come like literally speak directly to us.
Okay. So send a
All right.
DM, use the
Yeah.
the business email,
Use the business email hbtakes@gmail.com.
which is still up and running and doesn't now change. 'cause
still
we
still up and running.
age.
It's been a little stagnant
Please.
lately. We haven't had a lot of emails coming in.
Guys,
Literally just send us anything. You can send us memes. You can send anything you literally want. So
we need band names, please.
band names. Send us band names, suggestions.
And Chat GPT isn't always gonna work for that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ChatGPT
True.
always comes in clutch, man.
All right. Well, should I start us off?
Yeah. Wait, do they know whose birthday it is?
It's Luke. Luke's
Hey!
birthday.
20.
The big
That's
2-0.
20 years old.
Wow. Do you
2
feel
decades.
old right now?
You've lived 2 decades.
I feel like I have to switch up my personality big time now.
No,
Huh.
you don't.
I have to like never say D's nuts jokes
Adulting.
anymore. I
Oh,
can never
wow.
say D's nuts jokes again. Now that I'm 20.
I feel like 20 seems like to me like an awkward in between stage between 18 and 21 where you're not
19's
like
worse.
full 19's worse.
19's worse.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Because 20, you're actually like an adult now. The 2 is a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. You're adding another number into there.
Is it scary? Do you feel like you have a lot on your shoulders?
I feel like I need to have my act together more than I did yesterday. So,
Why?
because now I'm 20 years old, man. Like I said, I can't be a 20-year-old casually making D's nuts jokes in group conversations. I actually need to be, being a productive member of society. You know what I'm saying?
You've never felt that pressure before?
I think I felt like a distant pressure of it, but
It was like far off pressure, and now it's like
Yeah, it was like that's gonna
Now
be
it's
soon,
now-
but now
it's
it's real.
pressure.
Yeah, and I can't even cope with this kind of pressure with alcohol either. So now I'm just waiting a year until I can.
until you can have
Okay.
a nice banana. What was it? Banana.
A banana booter,
Banana Buddha.
banana liqueur, and root beer.
Don't look it up.
Don't try this at home, kids.
No, banana booter is great. Not that I would know.
Well, thank you guys for listening. It's been a blast. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bella, for joining us.
Yes.
Thank
thanks
you,
for
guys.
having
Great.
us.
Are we? I mean, I don't want to be the guy that says that, but you said you were gonna sing to me.
Oh, you
so-
want us to sing to you?
Oh my
Oh,
god.
well, since you asked.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Boom, boom. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. No, I'm taking the bass. I'm taking the bass.
No, G major.
You've lost.
Too low.
You've lost bass privileges.
What are you talking about?